Aswath Damodaran, the Dean of Valuation as they call him, has recently given his take on what he thinks the intrinsic value of Nvidia stock is. And I'd hate to give a spoiler, but it's not a bullish take on Nvidia. He thinks it's worth a lot less than what the current price is. I'm going to say it.
Aswath, what is Nvidia worth?
Now, my estimate, it's worth about $240 a share. But I mean, the bad news is, when you're pricing Nvidia at $450, $500 per share, you're not just assuming that they will dominate the AI market, even if it's a big market, but there are other markets out there that we don't even know about yet that Nvidia will find a way to dominate. Could that happen? Yes, but I'm not going to pay upfront a premium price on the assumption that they will find markets that are undiscovered and dominate them.
Because that price tag that you are paying for Nvidia stock is over $1 trillion for the company. So there's only 4 other companies that have the $1 trillion price tag. Now let's look at that relative to financials. How much are they actually bringing in terms of revenue and profit? So they're bringing in $30 billion a year in just revenue, not even profit. So you're paying 33 times the revenue of Nvidia. You're paying a hefty price tag, and the profit right now is 10 billion. So you're paying 100 times the profit of the business. So if you do pay a price of 1 trillion, you're assuming that they're going to do well in AI, gaming, automotive. They're going to be the top chip in a bunch of sectors just to justify that price tag. And not only the sectors that we know about, the sectors that we don't yet know about. What's going to come after artificial intelligence? Will it be virtual reality? How is Nvidia going to get a piece of that market share? Self-driving cars. Nvidia will need to get a piece of that market share to justify $1 trillion. You're pricing Nvidia to do well in a bunch of current markets and a bunch of future unknown markets.
But even $240 a share, that's like down almost 50% from here. So that's my challenge. I understand you say you wouldn't buy it here, but you seem to be saying even if it went down to $300 a share, people shouldn't buy it. Like, okay.
And I think it really depends on how you see the AI craze playing out and how dominant you think Nvidia will be in that space. The larger the potential AI market and the more likely it is that Nvidia will dominate the market, the higher the number becomes. 240 becomes 280, becomes 320. And I think that's a judgment you've got to make. But this is a stock that's had near-death experiences. I mean, sometimes companies, investors look at companies like Nvidia and say, I could never buy a stock like this. It's so richly priced. I mean, this stock was $30 6 years ago. So, and it's had near-death experience. It's dropped 50, 60, 80%. These are companies where if the momentum shifts, you can very quickly see a route in the other direction. You've seen this on Tesla. And I think you could see this in Nvidia as well. So if you haven't been lucky enough to add Nvidia yet, I think that there will be a point somewhere in the next year or two when fear is greatest. You will not feel comfortable buying Nvidia at 150 because everybody's going to be fleeing. These same equity research analysts who put out buy recommendations with the stock it's 470 are quick to put out sell recommendations with the stock it's 150.
So he's kind of confronting Wall Street here. I mean, Wall Street, with their price targets, all of their price targets they put, we all know that it's pretty corrupt in a certain sense, because when stocks are doing well, when their profit margins are high and they've grown a lot, they're bullish. They're very bullish. They'll get the current price and then they'll put a target, 20% more, 50% more. If they want to be extremely bullish, they'll put 100% more. They operate with greed and fear. They just go with the trend, and there will come a time when Nvidia stock is down and people are fearful on it, and we all know what Wall Street's going to do then. They're going to lower their price targets. They're going to put a new price target. They'll get the price and they'll lower it by 10%, 20% or whatever. So that's how investors operate, and Wall Street are the epitome of the emotional investing. They operate with fear and they operate with greed. And right now, they're very greedy with Nvidia. They're seeing AI. They're seeing these high profit margins that Nvidia are getting. They're seeing this amazing growth that Nvidia has got. They're seeing the high demand for chips. Greed, 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 greed. Everything points to greed. But there will come a time where AI is not the new buzzword. Just like crypto was was the buzzword of the past. Now it isn't, just like NFTs were. And when this time comes, investors will become fearful and no one will want to own Nvidia stock. And this is how I look at Nvidia now. Everyone's greedy, and I am very fearful when people are greedy because the price tag is so high. But when people become fearful on Nvidia, that's when I'll be more likely to buy the stock. Right now, I'm cautious. Don't get me wrong, we do need to look at the other side to Nvidia, and Aswath has sold half of his Nvidia, yes, but he's also holding on to the other half.
At the same time, though, you're not selling all your Nvidia stock, right?
No. And I think that reflects the mixed feelings I have about the company. I mean, I was lucky enough to get in at the right price. It's made me more than enough money for me to view it as a great investment. But at the same time, there is enough of a tail on the distribution, a chance that they will pull off this, with this exceptional drop that might make them worth 600 or 700. I wouldn't buy them at today's price, but to the extent that you bought them a way back at the right price, and if you have them in your portfolio, I wouldn't argue with you if you said, I'm going to let the stock run.
So he's saying that this stock could be worth $600, $700 a share. It could go from $400 to $600, $700. And I mean, just look at Nvidia. Look how amazing they've done over the past few years. $10 billion in terms of revenue just a few years ago, 2020, and now it's 30 trillion. Let's look at the profit, because the profit, I believe, has done even better than that. Profit in 2020 was 2.8 billion. Now it's 10.3 billion. This company has done amazing things. Guys, I'm not an expert in artificial intelligence. Ask anyone who knows me, they'll tell you that. I think actually very few people are experts in artificial intelligence, as many who do like to pretend to be one. But let's just think about AI for a second. Think of all of the industries it can disrupt. Transportation with autonomous driving, Uber, taxis, everything. It can just kill all of their jobs, basically. How big a market share, how big a market is this industry? It can disrupt customer service and all of the menial jobs, quote unquote. Already look at supermarkets. You no longer need someone at the counter to serve you. You just go to a machine and the machine does it all, and to scan the things, and it will tell you how much you need to pay. Think of all the other sort of menial jobs it can completely wipe out. One of the recent ones we're seeing is actors, where they're scanning the face of actors, so you no longer need background actors to act in movies. AI is disrupting, it seems like, almost every industry. So this is a big market that Nvidia can, profit from. So it could be intrinsically worth $2 trillion, 2.5 trillion, but it depends how well Nvidia can do in this market, because they do have big players that they're competing with. Intel, AMDs, these are not easy companies to compete with in the current industry. And then look at all of the players that are looking to get into this space. You've got tech giants like Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Tesla. They're all actively investing, putting billions into AI chip research to reduce their reliance on outside companies and make money from this sector too. If Nvidia play the game well and compete against these very hard competitors to compete against, I mean, I would hate to compete against Tesla or Apple or any of those companies. It's not easy, but if they can easily be worth $600, $700 a share, as Aswath says. But you could argue that the risks are more than the potential rewards for this stock.
But Nvidia reminds me today so much of Microsoft, low 23 years ago. Here you are with a transformational AI on a business that has been a very good business with their graphics chips. Now, there are Wall Street analysts that in the next 5 years think the profit margin is going to get to 50% and that the business is going to grow by 40% a year. Maybe it does. But when you start talking about 10 and 15-year periods of time, and you start talking about paying $1.2 trillion for a business that's doing $25 billion in sales on a 20% profit margin, even if you get this immediate surge in top line growth and an immediate surge in profitability, you have to presume a lack of competition. I mean, AMD, there are other players in the chip world. There's so much that can go wrong, but only in the case where everything goes right, when you extrapolate everything out, can you get to a mid to high single digit return? So I would say Nvidia, you pay Nvidia at today's price. I'd say the same thing that I did about Microsoft. Today's investor in Nvidia will lose money over the next 15 years.
So that is a big call. Let's see what happened to Microsoft stock in 2000, the period that he alludes to. So in 2000, Microsoft was $56. Then it crashed massively by 58%. And then it took 15 years, 16 years to go back to its previous price. So this is what Chris is alluding to. He thinks it may be Nvidia may be a similar story to Microsoft. That is a big call. Think about Microsoft in the year 2000. Everyone was saying computers are going to disrupt the world. The internet is going to disrupt the world. And they were right on this. Computers did disrupt the world. The internet did disrupt the world. They were right that Microsoft was going to be a big player in computers and with the internet. What they were wrong with is Microsoft did not justify a $58 price tag. It took them 15 years to regain to that previous price. So this is why you have to be very careful with Nvidia stock today, because it is selling for a hefty price. And a couple of other things, Nvidia's CEO has been doing a lot of selling. His name's Jensen, has now sold $100 million worth of Nvidia shares in the last few days. Go to insiderscreener.com and you can see just every day he's making a lot of sales. 1 million. It's like $4 million every day, and in total apparently it's about $100 million that he sold. Now, just to put that into perspective, he does own 3.5% of Nvidia stock. So 3.5% of $1 trillion company, what is that? $35 billion. In total, $100 million is nothing for him. It's about 1/380th of his total net worth in the stock. So it's nothing for him. It's not a major sale, but nevertheless, there's a lot of insider selling going on. $276 million of Nvidia stock that's been sold, and no one is buying the stock on the inside.